My name is Joe O'Brien. I'm the Green Party candidate for Dublin Fine Gael. I've just finished recently working in homeless services in Dublin for about 12 years at both the frontline and policy level. And I'll tell you a bit of a story about something that I've worked on in homeless services that has gotten a little bit of publicity of late, but needs a lot more public attention in my view. In 2014, I started drafting a report about the practices and procedures of the main public office in Dublin that homeless people are required to present to. You have to go there and present your case if you're homeless. I was asked to do this because I worked for a service that dealt with an awful lot of homeless people every year, about 3,000-4,000. And me and my colleagues have been noticing for some time that the people who presented to the service often ended up coming to us and reported back very bad treatment. People were not let in the door. People who were let in the door had extremely inappropriate and insensitive things said to them. People who might be dealt with by this particular service were not assessed properly, and a whole variety of things that my colleagues were bringing up the line in this Dublin City Council run state service actually for some time, but it was getting nowhere. People were being treated the same. So I was asked to do a piece of work on it. I had a record of doing assessments of governmental administrative procedures with different departments and had published a number of reports in that regard that were generally well received. So I started doing a bit of digging, started putting it together, writing up how people were being treated and how the reports were coming through to us. In the process of doing that, I discovered that this office was bouncing quite a number of people away from their service. And remember, this is a local authority. Local authorities are the agency with the statutory responsibility to house people. But this office was bouncing people away to another office that a lot of people didn't know about, and was actually an office of the Department of Social Protection. Now, we had been aware of this for some time, but we didn't realise how many people were actually being accommodated by this other office. Hope I don't get too technical now. But in short, what I discovered in the process of the report was that there were 2,756 homeless people in the Dublin area that were effectively being kept off the books and treated very badly and denied their rights, essentially. How to synopsise what happened then, but I suppose, in short, it had been our initial plan to publish this report. The people who were being criticised in this report, which is essentially the Dublin Regional Homeless Executive, intervened. I was then told that the report was not going to be published. I then started getting legal advice. I started talking to Transparency Ireland, got legal advice. I was told that under whistleblower legislation I would be protected if I put this information into the public domain. But I didn't want to do that if I could avoid it. So then a process started whereby a journalist tried to FOI this report, and the agency in question, Dublin Regional Homeless Executive, stated that, oh, this report doesn't exist. So I kind of realised then I was in a fight and I needed to actually take a step further in this whole situation. But to cut a long story short, I had to take serious risks with my career and my livelihood to put the information in the public domain that the homeless figures in Dublin, as we stand at the moment, are being drastically undercounted, and a whole cohort of people are being treated absolutely shamefully by the main service that has responsibility to deal with them. So I'm not going to talk too much more about it, but what I would like to say to those in power who have buried this information and who have tried to block publication of this report from day one, firstly, I'd like to say to you, how dare you treat homeless people with less than the utmost respect? How dare you turn them away from your door when you have the statutory responsibility to deal with them? How dare you refuse to assess their applications for help? And how dare you to refuse to grant them the rights provided for them in our laws? And how dare you hide a whole group of vulnerable people from the eyes of policy and decision makers? How dare you flout freedom of information legislation aimed at increasing transparency in how we do government? And how dare you claim the report doesn't exist? But most of all, how dare you mislead the public in terms of the scale of the homelessness problem in Dublin at the moment? I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep fighting for transparency in government. I'm going to keep fighting for people who've been left behind. And if elected in a few weeks' time by the people of Dublin Fingal, I will bring these fights and I will bring this issue to Dáil Éireann. Thank you.
I think that provides a very vivid example of the government's failure in terms of how homelessness, which is, I think, the most cruel end of a failed housing policy.